Crimson Desert is not made for everyone. That's the reality. The first 7 to 10ish hours quite frankly suck. The controls are absolutely horrendous, the combat is rather uneventful and hacky slashy early on before you get skills, you have a million systems being thrown at you, you have no idea what to do, and the UI sucks so bad that you'll have to navigate through a million menus just to have any chance of finding out what the hell is going on. Yet, I'm having fun. I'm having so much fun, I can't stop. And at the end of the day, that's what games are for, right? To play them and to have fun. The criticisms this game is receiving are all 100% valid. It has so many issues. I can't tell you the number of times I've gone to sprint only to bend down to the ground like a doofus and embarrass my entire Greymane bloodline. Or when I want to pick something up, I accidentally jump. I've found myself as the accidental perpetrator of assault on numerous occasions because I keep slamming innocent farmers into the ground. I then acquire a massive bounty on myself, and suddenly I find myself working in the diamond mines to get out of massive debt that was of no fault of my own. The stealing system requires you to have a mask, and they'll know you stole even if no one is near. The stealth system in general is just bad. I had one of the worst quests I've ever played in my life that involved me reading ledgers for 30 minutes only to be quizzed at the end, and if I didn't get all 5 right, I had to start over in an unskippable dialogue. Let's be clear. This game has no chance of winning Game of the Year, and it never did, even if GTA wasn't releasing later this year. Yet Crimson Desert is enjoyable, and I'm going to go on a miniature rant here, but I promise it will all make sense. I grew up playing and loving New Vegas and Skyrim. Those were my 2 favorite games I had played in my childhood. I had all the time in the world to just explore the vast open worlds that you can get lost in. Just pick a direction and go find some random crap to do. I probably played more blackjack in New Vegas and hunted more animals in Skyrim than I've played some full AAA games, because they were worlds that you lived in. You didn't care about the destination, it was the journey and the tiny events you encounter along the way. That is what Crimson Desert is, and this is also why there is a fundamental disconnect between some journalists and gamers, and why the discourse for this game has such a high variance. If I were on a deadline blitzing through the game with my boss breathing down my neck, just beating my head against a mediocre ass main storyline, dealing with the shitty controls, I too would think this game blows. But where this game shines is when you slow down, get distracted, go take a detour, go fishing or arm wrestling or exploring some random cave. It's when you invest in learning the combat, the systems, and the overall feel of the game. The most obvious and recent comparison for this kind of game to me is Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 from last year, a game that also had a rough couple of first hours, some janky systems, and journalists dragging it. Yet it ended up being one of the best games of the year if you were someone who liked just living in a world. That's Crimson Desert. If you just want a world to explore like New Vegas, like Skyrim, like The Witcher, then you'll probably like this game. And I don't want any of you out there to think this is on the same level as those games, it's absolutely not. But it does share similar characteristics to those other great games. There has never, in the history of games as far as I know, been something made on this scale with this level of beauty and grandeur. The size and scope of this game is absolutely insane. You'll find yourself saying, oh, I'll just do this one more thing before bed, and it'll end up with you playing for another hour because you're stumbling into so many random things to do. You'll just stumble into a random village, help a guy find some cows, and along the way you'll rack up some coin doing some gambling, some arm wrestling, some thieving, maybe even some hunting. And then end with the most ass-clenching boss fight you've experienced, and that's just every day in Crimson Desert. To be perfectly honest with you, I never intended to play this game. To me it looked like the most obvious mile-wide and inch-deep scam game ever made, and to a certain extent, this has truth to it. But the amount of just sheer things to do, ways to play, and enjoyable combat has me itching for more. As far as the story goes, make no mistake, this game's main narrative is not going to win any awards, it's just there. It's a somewhat basic story of revenge, with the main character being Kliff, where you try to rebuild the Greymanes after almost all of you were ambushed and murdered at the beginning of the game by the rival clan, the Black Bears. The actual concept of rebuilding the Greymanes clan, handling resources, trading, and whatnot is a fairly enjoyable experience. The B-plot storyline is of magic rocks falling from the sky and Kliff being heavily involved with them. It's really just fine, but if a mediocre narrative is a deal breaker for you, then this is not your kind of game. The side quests are mostly enjoyable and fun, but at times can feel repetitive and MMO-like. Again, this is just my experience after 40 hours, which for this game is extremely small, so maybe the story will pick up and I don't know about it, but this is where I'm at right now. I also think another deal breaker is for anyone who does not have much time to game. Like I mentioned earlier in the video, it legitimately takes 7 hours minimum before the game reaches a good spot, once you unlock your settlement and have a better feel for the game. So if you're a dad gamer out there who has 1 hour a night to play, I would really have a hard time recommending the game to you. And the final deal breaker for most of you will be the bugs and overall jank. I'm sure you've seen tons of reviews on this already. The concerns are absolutely valid, and if you want to wait 3 or 6 months till they have this game fixed and on sale, truthfully, I believe that that is the correct approach. Which brings us to the most frustrating thing about this game. All of the issues this game has should have been so easily solvable with just someone playing the game for 5 hours. The controls, the UI, the bugs, they either need to pay their QA team more or have someone who can tell their boss that his ideas suck. And before I leave, I do want to talk about combat, since I largely am a combat and gameplay oriented player. The combat in this game is really fun. It's like a slower paced Dynasty or Samurai Warrior style game. I've seen some comparisons to Souls, but I don't think it's nearly as challenging, and it's faster than Souls for sure. But some of these bosses will absolutely put you in a spin cycle if you're not locked in. On the flip side, the random trash mobs are entirely there to fulfill your power fantasy, and they do that job extremely well. At times you can be fighting 30-40 soldiers, just absolutely annihilating them left and right, parrying them, drop kicking them, throwing them, suplexing them. It's all extremely satisfying, and it only gets increasingly more and more satisfying as you not only get more skills, but as you, the player, learns how to properly use them. I had one fight early-ish in the game where I was legitimately carving through enemies for 15 minutes straight, and even after all the time I've played, I still don't fully understand my best combos, and I've barely even touched the spear, longsword, dual blades, or other characters, which have their own weapons and skill trees. The amount of depth you can get from the different weapon sets, combos, skills, and weapon skills is quite overwhelming, but in a positive way. There's just so much here to master. This sense of progression in skill certainly gives you a feeling similar to Souls, where you can feel yourself leveling up, especially when you're fighting a boss who has already taken you down multiple times, and you can finally barely take him out with an ounce of health left. So with all that being said, if you're not willing to saddle up and learn how to fight, that might be another deal breaker for you. I personally would not say the fights in this game are overly difficult, like some reviews I have seen. Compared to games like Sekiro or Elden Ring, it's a cakewalk, and if you're worried, just know you can pretty much just eat food, which are this game's potions the entire fight, and it has no animation. The game also gives you an on-demand revive in the form of Palmar pills anytime you die, and if you have enough of them, you can die 100 times in a fight and just keep reviving. If you do decide to start the fight over, you actually get all your food back that you used, so there really isn't terrible amount of risk or loss. Overall, I've rambled on far too long already. If you're a patient gamer who likes to exist in a different world, learn a deep combat system, and just get lost for hours doing absolutely nothing productive, then this is your game. If you need a tight narrative, polished controls, or only have an hour a night to play, then come back in 6 months when it's patched and on sale. If I was to score it, I would probably give it an honest 7 right now, with it potentially up to an 8.5 if the devs give it some love. This game is ultimately a slow burn. If you treat it like a sprint, it's definitely going to feel like shit. And if you've played the game, I want to hear your thoughts in the comments. Thanks for watching.